Now, going back to Gerald Celente. Gerald, I've been throwing some of the questions out here, and you were getting into Afghanistan and these diversions, but I totally concur with you. They'll have this weird moral idea of torture, secret arrest, kill 200 people to kill one bad guy, let 40,000 blacks be killed or injured because they're black in Libya by Western-funded al-Qaeda. All of this comes out, and it's moral and loving with left cover under Obama. But then some troops urinate on dead bodies, and I'm not saying that's a good thing to do, but that's just I mean, usually wars, raping, murder, stuff even worse. And then they obsess over it and moralize like they're these goody two-shoes up there. I mean, it's clearly a psychological operation.
Well, again, it's exactly that, because the same metaphor could be applied to, you have a big guy like John the Slime Corzine that can't find $1.2 billion, and you see him at these phony little House hearings over there with the name in front of him, Honorable John Corzine. But then somebody, you know, you or I or anybody out there, we have a minor infraction, they're going to come down with the strong arm of the law to show us that we have to obey. So these soldiers are the pawns for these criminals that sent them over there. It's a despicable act to have invaded Afghanistan. It's a despicable act to have started the war in Iraq. How come there's no war crime tribunals? It's clear as can be. I saw that Ron Paul, it's going all over the internet, the one on the war in Iraq. How you hear from Colin Powell, how you hear from Bush, how you hear from Rumsfeld, how you hear from Cheney. Say, it's clear, all the evidence is there, man. This guy has weapons of mass destruction. They're some of the worst on earth, and they're going to get us. How come nobody's bringing them in for questioning? It's the same thing. The criminals that started are the ones that blame us for the problems, because it all ties together, Alex. What's going on in Europe with the collapse of the European Monetary Union that's happening in front of us, what they do, and the same thing back here in the States, the bigger their screw-ups, the more it costs, the more they clamp down on us. So that's what you're seeing at every level, whether it's at war, whether it's in the economy, whether it's in social, as Ron Paul again says when they call him a racist. He's out there saying, you don't see any rich people getting electrocuted. You don't see the rich people like John the Slime Corzine doing any time. It's the minorities. It's the poorer people. It's one after another. It's all ties together.
Well, Gerald, I want to go to calls here, but what are some of the other big trends you're looking at right now?
Well, right now, you know, those are the ones that we all have to pay attention to. And, of course, this whole election that's going on and the disgrace that they call the media. You know, I suffer through watching this stuff, as you do. And you see how they marginalize Ron Paul. And I have to tell you, all my life I've been watching this. I've never heard a greater speech than his after the New Hampshire primary. It was natural, it was real. We're sitting together with our staff, and as soon as Romney came on, I looked at them, I said, this cat's talking from a teleprompter. You see the way the cameras were set and his cadence, and sure enough, that's what it was. And one after another, they were dead. Ron Paul hits it, he was alive. And one thing he said, among other things, that really stuck out. He's calling for an intellectual revolution. Sound familiar? It's a call that I made a number of years ago. We sent out a trend alert and wrote about it in 2009. We even took out the domain name, intellectualrevolution.com, back in 2009. So this is the direction for the future. It has to be one of brains And clearly, the nitwits at the Treasury, they don't have the brains. I just want to read this to you briefly, Alex, because it puts things into perspective of how we're being brainwashed. And this is from, of course, the Turlet paper of record. The transcripts of the 2006 meetings clearly show some of the nation's preeminent economic minds did not fully understand the economy that they were in charge of supervising. The most preeminent minds. What a bunch of beltway wankers.
Well, no, that's what they do. They have this appeal to experts, and they roll out paid hacks, and they'll say, is it credible that Ron Paul, I saw this on the news last week, says that Israel created Hamas? And the lady says, no, it's not credible. When Israel admits they did, it's like saying, is it credible Ron Paul said that ducks have beaks? And she goes, no, everyone knows they have the mouths of wolves. And they're like, see, is it credible that Ron Paul says the sky is blue? And she's like, no. And it's this where they sit there like con artists in plain view and tell us what reality is. And the real Al-Qaeda has been given Libya. Gerald, I played that clip because you brought it up. But, I mean, how do they square, we've got to attack anybody who might get a nuke? Let's say they might get a nuke. I mean, do we attack Pakistan, Russia, China? This idea that we attack somebody before they attack, and then our government blows up their military bases as they admit is happening, and that's loving and liberal to assassinate people, and then torturing people is good, and then the American people that go along with the war, Gerald, do they think they're going to be safe when there's no Bill of Rights or Constitution? I mean, these protections are there for a reason.
Well, again, that's why one of the reasons we have one of our top trends of 2012, Battlefield America. Now, as you well know, that after signing the National Defense Authorization Act on New Year's Eve, when no one was paying attention, and most people don't knowing what is in that, they could call the term is in there, belligerents. You and I, we're pretty belligerent. They could take us away and kill us. And I believe they're doing this because they do see the collapse coming, and they are going to start a war. They're already doing it. They've declared war. They're cutting them out from not making a buck. It's an embargo. It's clear as that. And the point that I want to keep making is that the same type of incompetence that is in clear view for everyone to read that comes from the economic end, the incompetence and stupidity and arrogance that we just heard from Bush, from Colin Powell, from Rumsfeld. I love Rumsfeld. They chop people's heads off. Hey, guess what? I think somebody chopped your cojones off, Donald. I'm sick and tired of these fat mouths like Gingrich over there. We have to go bomb or... What do you mean we? I mean, this guy can't run up a flight of stairs. What do you mean we? And here's the sickness and the immorality. Because they're sending young guys to do this. These guys are coming back realizing that they're going through all these tours of duty for nothing and being put in these terrible conditions and their lives threatened. They're drugged out on prescription drugs. They're coming back home. And what's here for them? Nothing. Nothing. I read something that the unemployment rate among our vets is over 30%. And they don't want to go to the VA. And you know why they don't want to go to the VA? Because they just saw how the military shafted them. And they don't trust the VA. So it's a morality issue here. It's as clear as that.
No, we've got a bunch of crooks that are cynical and think everything's a joke and think the party's going to never end. I want to go to some calls, but look at this economic news. Now, you and I and others get criticized for pointing out that according to all classical economic numbers, we're in a depression. U.S. debt nears $15.94 trillion. That's more than the GDP every year. Here's one out of Forbes. The worst economic recovery since the Great Depression. Now they call it the greatest recession. You got to love how they spin 50 million Americans on electronic soup kitchen, food stamps, and they just keep shoveling this bull at us, and it's become totally see-through, But they're up there saying, let them eat cake. I don't see them getting away with this, Gerald.
Well, no. And again, this election is the most important in our lifetime. It can go... Alex, I've never felt more confident about a new year than 2012. The vacuum is so huge, anyone can see through the lies. Again, front page story about how the Fed didn't see it coming and lied to us simultaneously. The clip that you just played of Ron Paul, how they lied to us. People see it. You're 100% correct. The future is in our hands. It's a moral issue. It's not a political issue.
Well, out of the criminality that we have in our government flows all these problems. I mean, it's now coming out that Monsanto, we already knew this, but now it's confirmed, actually owns most of the ambassadors and pays them. And so they'll give a country some giant concession that hurts other industries just to get what Monsanto wants through. I mean, there's just no end to this espionage. This is corporate globalist espionage through our government. Look at how Goldman Sachs runs all the country ministers that they're gutting. I mean, it's real simple. It's a hijacking.
Again, as I said it, it's as old as the scriptures. The money changers are in charge. It's the love of money being the root of all evil. I just didn't make that one up right now. And you can look, and the ties are the same. Look at the war profiteers from this Iraq war. Oh, and they'll come up, they can't find $85 billion. And hey, what's for lunch? I mean, come on. It's one thing after another. And again, as I said, we have a gang of 535 senators and congressmen running the show.
But now I see videos every day where a woman just says, oh, you're a big tough guy to a cop, so he punches her in the face and the police chief defends it, or where they beat somebody up for filming them. I mean, they throw the book at you for not even having a crooked toenail if you don't suck their boots properly. I mean, but then meanwhile, the criminals are running rampant.
You got it. And that's what happens in third world countries. Look, again, the gap between the rich and the poor. When I began my career in 1970, my first real job, the gap between the CEO and the average worker was 24 to 1. Now it's about 450 to 1. You look at yesterday's news, how much these three guys in the Carlyle group, this politically tied hedge fund, private equity firm, like $100 million each or something. And then you see the tax rate that they pay. They don't pay it on a personal level. No, it's a capital gains tax. No, it's not. You're just doing deals. They're paying 15%. We have to pay much more. We're in the 35% range. The whole game is rigged by the money changers. It's as simple as that, but I want to make it clear because you brought it up. People are seeing through this. The future is in our hands. It's ours to have. And I have to say, I have never been so pro a candidate as I am, and I make this clear. I don't agree with Ron Paul on a lot of libertarian issues. I want the CFTC, the Commodities Future Trading Commission. I want the SEC.
The point is he is an outsider. The system is attacking him, and that right there lets you know that's why he's the man for the job. And look at how they're throwing everything they've got at him, and he would be the candidate, presumptive winner for the nomination if they weren't throwing everything they had at him. But despite that, he's still rising, and they are pulling their hair out. They relish, the prostitutes do, the term you coined, that they can't just tell us what reality is now. And we don't just fall down on our knees and worship these little chicken neck teleprompter readers when they lied to us. I want to go to some calls here, but make a comment on the prostitutes running out of bullets and just discrediting themselves in the process.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you see it all the time. What was this guy King, was it John King, Queen, and his wife, Donna Bash? It's on the video, her saying how worried she was in the Republicans. This is CNN, that if Ron Paul wins, if he keeps going. And the other issue here, and I want to make this really clear, 4 more years of Obama, people are going to wish that Bush was back.